Hello and welcome to Bodied, episode 101. We're happy but then also sad. I'm Havokpus, your host. We're talking to Frozen Creek and Dr. Manhatten. Thanks for joining,
Hey, what's up,
guys.
guys? It's been a couple weeks, that's for sure.
I blame work.
Yeah, most
I blame
definitely. But
Thanksgiving.
hey, I'm always happy to be here.
I blame Thanksgiving, so that's good enough for me. I bought a Switch. I'm pretty stoked about that. That's about the
Nice.
only thing new with me.
That's cool. And also to be fair, this has been it's been a pretty weird, kind of what I call this quote unquote off season for esports right now. So, but I'm glad that we finally have some stuff to talk about and that we can go into it right away. Also, congrats on the Switch, man, because I got mine on day one and I love it.
Yeah, it's super fun. But this isn't the Switch podcast. This is the Cloud9 fancast. So we're gonna jump into probably our biggest story, or probably at least one of the biggest stories, this episode, and that's Rocket League. Our boys Squishy, Torment, and Gimmick. They secured the World Championship, and it was actually a pretty incredible run because they've lost the first game of that tournament. And then they decided they swept through the losers bracket. They reset against Dignitas, and then they took down the reigning world champions. And we're just sitting high as the world champions in Rocket League.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty crazy that, again, with everything that's been going on right now, that we get to just top the entire season off with winning the Season 6 finals. It's big for a few reasons. Yeah, one, the fact that they gave us probably one of the most difficult runs of any that anyone's ever seen in a Rocket League World Championship. And to do not only just survive that run period, we had some pretty big names in there, such as Weedham Girls was one that I was reading that was actually a really decent contender, a big surprise for everybody. And we did lose to them, and they eliminated us in the bracket or put us in the lower bracket. You also had NRG, who's definitely no slouch by any means. And we beat what were the season 5 rating champions in Dignitas, and we beat them quite convincingly. Even though if you watch that desk, no one had Cloud9 winning that one. It's yeah, this is just usual work for Dignitas, and similar to how we started off this season for Cloud9, where we took what was a game that was heavily represented by European talent, just the way we did it in CS:GO. We ended as well, where we take another game where Europeans have been dominating it, and we bring it back to North America.
Yeah, I think I was just surprised that now C9 has basically secured huge historic victories, I would say, in probably each esport that they have participated in just a year alone, which is hilarious to kind of read about. And I think the Rocket League team deserves it most of all, just because of how hard that they work. You see them; they're constantly getting top 3, top 4 placings in LAN tournaments. They've been probably the most consistent C9 roster, at least as of late. And just to see them finally have all that time, all that hard work just really pay off, and to have them win such a big title, I think is just really, it just feels really good.
Yeah, after the fact, they seem super stoked about it. I mean, as they obviously should. They played incredible in the final against Dignitas, who is a team I'm not gonna say they had no business beating, but that Dig lineup has kind of owned us for the last couple times that I can remember them playing. So I think it was a very rewarding win for the team and for the organization as a whole, and they should all be super proud with how they played.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, we're just going to gush over Rocket League a bit, so I think we should move on to our next kind of small story, and it's kind of weird. Over the past week or so, it looks like Cloud9 has sort of parted ways with a lot of Fort Nite players. I think we're still contracted with Hysteria, and I think maybe 2 or 3 other people. I'm not sure the exact names of who has left and who has stayed, but it's kind of interesting that a bunch of Fortnite players have left. I'm not sure if it's just that their contract ran out or the Fortnite scene being as it is, not being able to really generate a lot of continuous sort of action could be a part of it. But I found that just really interesting that we've sort of let a lot of Fortnite players go.
I think some of that has to do with the fact that I'm not gonna say it's stagnating right now, but like I mean, one interest I've noticed in Fortnite, at least in Twitch, has stagnated a bit. Where like, I mean, if you remember, like back to last summer, like even like a little before that, like Fortnite was like dominating a lot of the Twitch views now, and I've noticed that it's probably stagnated, if not declined, just slightly. It could you could attribute that to a million factors. But another thing I've noticed with Epic, and you know I do trust them in a lot of the ways they're executing it, is they still have a long way to go despite the popularity of the game when it comes to like running competitive esports, for example. Despite this game being relatively world represented, and you know the fact that this game's everywhere, we really haven't seen too many tournaments outside of like the skirmishes, which are what 2, 3 of them, and then we had that pro-am, which wasn't really a tournament. It was
Yeah, there's only been a handful. And I think you could even expand this out to Battle Royale in general, because when you look at the H1Z1 Pro League, for example, that folded after a season.
Yeah, I read about that too.
Yeah, like a bunch
I
of
totally forgot about that.
I know a bunch of I didn't because I pay attention to shit. So a bunch of H1Z1 players, they've either lost their jobs. I think Adrian, who was a player of ours, has completely given up on esports. He is going to do a regular, normal ass job now. And I find it just really interesting that the battle royale genre like exploded and everyone's like super excited about it, but also it doesn't seem to really last long as sort of a competitive thing versus something more concrete like MOBAs with League of Legends and Dota, or with like Overwatch, where I think companies either have taken the time to actually try and establish a professional scene, or that the games are approachable enough to where everyone can kind of watch it and play it and know exactly what's going on for the most part without feeling super lost or anything. So I think that there's a bunch of factors that make Battle Royale just really hard to make work outside of just streaming and playing for fun.
Also, the thing I do have to gripe about a bit more, and I think that Slasher was talking about this, is Epic really hasn't done a good job at like making tournament results really that, or at least for tournament, what's the word? Like competitive integrity, like that kind of thing. For example, if for the fall skirmish, they literally the patch they were playing on was literally only out for like a day or two, which is like that's unheard of if you play like any other like or you pay attention to any other esports where like they'll give you like a month to learn that patch, but like for them to do that where there was like big game breaking problems like that was a huge red flag, and I think that Epic has a long way to go to learn about some of this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see sort of I think like the next 6 months or so to see where exactly the Battle Royale and Fortnite actually go. If like Epic will fix things and try to make it more of an established scene so they can maybe rake in more money, or it'll just be a fad and then people will move on to whatever is next and then it'll just kind of fade away. But yeah. Moving on to our next story, Cloud9 CSGO had a rough time at the ECS Playoffs. That was last weekend, I believe. And they had a rough time. Valens had to end up standing in again because Golden was experiencing more medical issues. There wasn't anything really talked about in terms of specifically what was wrong with him. But it does kind of suck to see our squad just continuing to have like issue after issue and not being able to play with a full finalized 5-man roster for like no more than like a tournament or something.
Yeah, it seems like every time the wind blows that something seems to be going wrong with the roster. I feel like some of the performances are kind of excusable from that perspective, just due to the sheer fact that a lot of those teams are working with solid rosters and we're not. But I'm hoping that it gives some time for people to learn more about some of their other teammates and work on like the basic strategies that they might not see every day in practice or in competitive matches. So
Yeah, no, it's really tough to see right now. I mean, I hope for the absolute best for Golden that he does get better. But like, it's just one, God bless Valens. I mean, for God's sakes, I mean that guy's basic. I mean, we're hanging on a thread, and this guy's still managing to make that thread a lot stronger. But I mean, even some of the results that I'm basically looking at right now, it's kind of, again, it's, I don't want to say it's like we're free falling, but it's like it's definitely not easy right now for the CS team. And hopefully, like what's going on with Golden right now will resolve quickly, or if not, finding like a possible stand-in while he does get better. Because I don't think Valens, in any ways, even a long-term, I don't even think he's a short-term like stand-in for now, because he's a coach.
He's just sorry. He's just kind of there in case we need him because we don't actually have a sub on the roster. he's like forced to play because we need somebody, and he knows a lot about the game and can play at like the minimum level that you kind of need.
Yeah, it's basically all Valens is right now, and God bless him, but I kind of feel wrong doing that to him.
Yeah. But hopefully, I hope the team can like fix it together. I think mostly the team just needs consistency. We've seen what happens when the squad is all together and playing well. So I think we just need time. But yeah. Moving on to British Hurricanes. The team, our boys, we lost some people, but for good reason. So Kib, as well as Fusions, took the big step up, guys. They have graduated from the contenders and the tier 2 scene. They were blessed and moved up to Overwatch League, the big boys table. Fusions is going to be playing for Boston, and Kib, surprisingly enough, I believe is going to be playing for Guangzhou, which is kind of an interesting move, but I think, it sucks that we lost two really good players, but at the same time, I think it's just great that they actually were able to go into Overwatch League, which is really the whole point of having a contenders team. You get players and you train them and get the really good players, and then you can sell them off or just give them a spot that they deserve to be there. So I think it's just great to see that our players are moving on to bigger and better things.
Yeah. I like how the nod to the Guangzhou thing, because it is kind of weird that like I think he's only like one of two Western players on that team. Just him and Nero were like the only Western player. The rest of them is just a fully Chinese and Korean roster. But I wish the absolute best for him. And Fusions actually looks promising on Boston. They weren't half bad last season, so I expect good things from Fusions.
yeah, I think it's a good start to the Hurricanes roster and kind of like academy in general, just because it proves that there is a talent pipeline that we can use to jump up to the Overwatch League. I'm not entirely sure that is something that London is going to use and jump onto, but it is interesting that we are going to be able to start seeing players jump from these younger teams up to the actual Overwatch League as the league develops. And I think that that's something they've done a very good job of learning from the LCS and what is formerly known as like the Challenger League. So I'm glad they set that up early.
Yeah, me too. I know to replace Fusions, we signed Numlocked, who was on the not San Francisco Shock, LA Valiant. He played for the Valiant, I believe. So we have that, and we have, I believe, the rest of our players for the most part. So we have a squad, and I think we still have a lot of good players. They did lose like narrowly to 1 point last weekend, but it was a really good match and it was really back and forth. I think the Hurricanes still showed that they are one of the best teams in contenders, I think, and it was just a really kind of unfortunate made mistakes type deal. But even without Fusions and Kib, I think the team still looks really good. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what exactly is going to happen with the team after we've lost like probably our two biggest players.
Oh yeah, and there's a learning curve involved jumping up to the more organized level. So I'm sure that they did their scouting and are confident in the new players. So I'm happy to see them fall in face first and hope that they can develop throughout the year.
Yeah, same here. So I think we're going to move on to our sad story, which is Nikolai Jensen, once friend to Cloud9, has taken a knife and stabbed us in the back by saying, "No, guys, I know we made it to semifinals. I know that this may be the roster that can really push us to the next level, but I am going to take the easy way out and just join Team Liquid for money and for just basically playing with Doublelift and hoping that Doublelift can carry us to a championship." Discuss.
Yeah, I mean, it does hurt, and like legitimately for that to be the kind of like first move in this league offseason to happen, like it was probably like the very first, the one that we heard that like was a signing, and that one caught us all off guard because it's like we were all just, I'm pretty sure everyone was anticipating for like that, was it like a noon Western time deadline for when the offseason officially started, and for them to just like sign within like an hour, it was pretty nuts, to say the very least. I do see the discuss about this, and actually, the funny thing is, I'm kind of repeating myself because actually, I legit talked about this with Loco and Mark and Travis on Hotline League last night. But the thing is, like that, I think Loco was talking about just like there has to be some sort of integral issue that's been going on, and that might be even leaking to the benching, or maybe Jensen is that desperate for a ring right now. Either one, we're not giving him what he needs, or maybe he's not giving the performance that he needs. It's kind of a two-way street right now that I'm thinking about the Jensen situation right now.
Yeah, I think it is a lot of a two-way street. I kind of think the benching was more of like a last straw type of thing. I think when Jetson kind of came in, he had this like ideal that, oh, I'm gonna preface this by saying that this is just me reading based off what I've kind of gathered of Jensen through the last couple years as someone who's been one of his biggest fans. And I've kind of gathered that he's more like a more traditional mid laner in like the mold of like Bjergsen, where he feels like the game should be played through the mid lane, and that you win and die by the mid lane. And a lot of what this past year has kind of been hasn't really been around just hard winning mid lane. And I think that the performances in the spring coupled with the benching, where he wasn't obviously at his best during a decent amount of the spring split, and I would find it hard to believe that he wouldn't have been benched if he wouldn't have had some kind of attitude problems or arrogance, because I could totally see where that comes from based on the fact that he was perma banned at one point in time. But I think that was kind of like the last straw in a whole series of things where where Reaper kind of seems to have a more holistic view of the game, where all of the 5 people work together, and no one is a specific carry like kind of throughout the split, but it's more of like a team game, and some days Licorice is going to carry and get the jungle pressure. Some days it's going to be Sneaky, and some days it's going to be Jensen, depending on what the meta is and how the draft goes. And I think that Jensen was more of a self-centered player. Not saying that's bad, because a lot of what made Jensen so great was the fact that he was self-centered. So I think that it was a combination of a couple different things, and probably he's getting a fat paycheck out of it, which doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, I think mostly it's that Jensen. I definitely agree. I also heard, I think that Jensen was looked to sort of be a leader because we were bringing in so many rookies, but he didn't want to be in sort of that leadership role. He just wanted to do his own thing, and I think that definitely caused some issues. I think that also brings up a really good talking point about what is the franchise going to do with issues like Team Liquid. Team Liquid has Disney money. They have like basically endless pockets. What are they going to do about a team that can essentially buy their way into almost a guaranteed final spot with just cutting a check and getting pretty much any high-powered talent they want? You know, what should there be a salary cap in place to ensure that something like this doesn't just continue to happen every single split?
All right, so first off, I'm gonna say I think Cloud9 has those deep pockets also, and that if there was someone that they really wanted, that they could throw a fat paycheck at them. But I think that Jack kind of has an ideal of how he kind of wants to build an organization, and that comes first over just assembling random parts at any price. And I think that that's something that I really admire, because that's how I like to play all my video games, is to build something up from the bottom. So I will let you guys go back to the salary cap. I just wanted to throw that in really quick.
I mean, I can see the argument for salary cap. I'll ultimately say I'm in the middle of it, and I don't really have a specific angle at which I wanted to approach the salary cap thing. But yeah, going to what Frozen just said, I do agree that like Jack has a specific idea of how he wants the team to kind of be run, or at least have, and the fact that, and not to mention, this is kind of the trend we've been seeing with a lot of players. No, they don't listen to us. I'll throw them under the bus. We saw the case with players like Amazing and with Gilius and with Cody Sun, that with franchising, difficult players, no one's gonna put up with that anymore. Especially not a team like Cloud9, where they benched their players for being either one difficult or just in general not adhering to how they wanted to play. So with that being said, I mean, we're seeing players like that just get mentioned. Maybe Jensen did somehow say the right words to Steve to convince him, or maybe Steve is just being Steve and just throwing money because he can. If anything, Loco legitimately told me the other day, like, yeah, this was a very Steve move to do, just to buy like the best possible player he can, just because he can and because he's Steve. But in terms of franchising, I would say that maybe a bit to Jensen going to Team Liquid. I can let everyone know is be cautious, because part of the reason you worked so well on Cloud9 is because everyone was it was pretty much family first in a sense, or just for lack of a better term, it was pretty family first. But now you're in a place where people really don't care about your feelings. It's kind of like especially with big personalities like Double Lift. I mean, he's worked with Impact, so that's kind of an advantage. With people like Smithy, or with people like Double Lift, and now with a world champion that's on your roster, two of them. Definitely, it's going to be interesting to see how they balance that out for Team Liquid.
I think they definitely need to do something. I mean, just looking at from other orgs, I don't know. I think that a big thing is like, well, it depends on who you're funded. Like, look at Optic or TSM, for example, or CLG even. They do not have nearly as big of or deep of pockets as, say, like 100 Thieves or Golden Guardians. They have NBA money. Team Liquid has Disney money. I guess Cloud9 has WWE money, which I think is still, I guess, fairly big. But if you look at some of the other orgs, I feel it's somewhat lopsided, and you can really tell, okay, who are the really heavily funded, heavily invested organizations versus which are the ones that aren't getting these big story investments or these, really deep pocket kind of deals. And I think that is sort of, it does kind of cause a disparaging kind of thing. And I think that it'll only get wider and wider if something isn't done to maybe kind of rein that in and make sure that there's at least somewhat of a level playing field when it comes to signing and acquiring talent.
So I like the idea of a salary cap because it does level the playing field. Like, I guess the NBA is kind of a bad example at the moment because of the Warriors, but the NFL is more of a better example because in general, any year a new team can win the Super Bowl. The best coach team, the Patriots, generally ends up winning a decent amount of the time, but like it's still a setup where any team can win the league any year except the Browns and Lions, and I say that as a Lions fan of 26 years. My qualms with the salary cap is the fact that it kind of it sets a limit on how much the players are paid, and and anything else that's brought in as like a revenue is funneled directly to the owner as opposed to being put into buying players and paying for players. And that's not something I can totally agree with because the product on the Rift is based on what players are out there, and if you artificially lower how much the players can make, they can either look towards different careers, like maybe they try out Overwatch or something where it's maybe not capped, or maybe they just leave league together because they have to take some $40,000 paycheck because double lift is taking up 60% of a salary cap. And I don't think that's totally fair to the players who are making the worst amount of money. So like, think on our team it would be Zazel and Licorice just because they're rookies, and I think it's unfair to lower the amount of money the players can make just for a parity in the league, and because I think that the league so far has shown that there is a decent amount of parity year after year.
Yeah, again, I'm still in the middle on that one, but I do see the arguments for both, most definitely.
Yeah, I'm not like opposed to it. I just think that the players are the ones putting on the entertainment, and they're the ones making the money. So I think that they should be the ones who are actually making the money, as opposed to the owners who kind of, not so much in such a young esport as League of Legends or something, but a lot of people will buy into like the NFL or like the English Premier League in soccer just because they can make some giant profit out of it. And I think that the money should be more focused on the people who actually bring the entertainment to the plate, rather than the ones who are literally just trying to make profits.
Well, if you have an opinion on this, please let us know in the comments. But it is only darkest before the dawn, and after much speculation, after a lot of frantic rumors and such of who would sign, C9 said, okay, we got Niski. And I'm not sure how to feel about it, actually. I think on the one hand, I'm excited just because Niski looked very promising. He looked like he grew a lot over with his time on Splice. But on the other hand, I was just kind of disappointed that we didn't hire someone with a bigger name. I felt like, at least for once, we would get like the really big name instead of maybe like another diamond in the rough type deal, which has sort of been Cloud9's deal for a while, and we've always been more about developing talent rather than getting already developed high-performing talent. But I don't know. I think that I was just a bit disappointed that it's not like, okay, we got Niski. He's he's kind of good. He could be better. Instead of just like, oh, we signed what's his face or whatever. So that's how I felt about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure. Just because I think part of that when it comes to like Jensen, I mean, when you think about the prestige that Jensen has, like, how many people would realistically like be an on paper upgrader? I mean, like, I can only name you like probably off the top of my head in terms of like experienced mid laners, or like would be I can only probably name you like I don't even think 5. Like the only people I can think on top of my head that would be like an on paper upgrade or provide some sort of value, or like what, like Caps, Perks, Bjergsen. Like other than that, or like if we want to go Korean, that could hurt a bit more unless they speak absolutely fluent English, or unless it's like an outlier like Faker. Like unless you get something like that, like it's gonna be very hard to convince somebody. Like, hey, we got this guy, especially when you consider the market that was available for mid laners. So, but yeah, I can see why I can see the absolute like why they're upset, or like why any Cloud9 fan would be upset. Overall, I do think that Niski does show a lot of promise. He's been in the scene for years now, even though he's only 20. I actually just learned that, like, he's not that old.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's like he's been around since like 2013, I think. Like competing, even on some minor teams like LTLC or something like that. But like, yeah, he's only like 20, and he's too familiar with an A, which I think that's a big thing to be good with an A, because we just saw what happened to fucking Febivin, where he's going back to EU because of how much he hated it here. If you guys heard about that. So I think it's good to have somebody who likes the culture here, if they're an import, because we don't want a Febivin or Mickey situation. Another example to name.
The Mickey situation is so funny to me. Like didn't he like legit walk out during a scrim and just say I'm done, and then just hops on a plane to Korea?
Yeah, like I think at one point like you ever hear that cliche thing of like like you can do this or you leave, like, you know what I mean, like that cliche.
Oh yeah.
He basically said, "Okay, I'm leaving." Like after a scrim, like, he just straight up said, "Like, okay, I'm out."
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but like the fact that he hated his team, the fact that he hated the culture here, like, I mean that's already a big red flag for a player, and the fact that Niski has experience on Envious for a split, and clearly he doesn't mind the culture here, and the fact that he's on a team like Cloud9, I mean, we had to have given him some sort of convincing to leave his home after having such a promising time on Splice, and knowing that E was going into franchising, mind you, in terms of like, I mean, you probably could have made an equal amount of money on like a team like if Splice decided to resign him, or some of the new orgs that are coming in like Excel or Rogue. But the fact that like I definitely have a lot of confidence in him. I've spoken with a few people who like in the scene that I've known, just a few people that I told you guys about, that like he said he has a great attitude. He's just an overall good player and willing to learn. And again, if it means anything, even though I think age is somewhat of an overrated factor, like, yeah, he's 20, for God's sake. So I got faith that he'll grow. And even worst case scenario is like we go back. I mean, we don't really have the worst fallback. I mean, we have Golden Glue, for God's sakes.
Yeah, I can kind of see how both of you guys feel. At first I was really disappointed kind of to find out that we picked up Niski, but a lot of that was because I haven't been able to watch EU as much as I have in the past, so I haven't seen too much of him. I've since gone back and watched a couple Niski games, and I've been pretty impressed with at least that their place game against Vital Eddie, where he performed insanely good in a couple of the games. A couple was some kills that were fed to him, and then he was easily able to dominate the game. But if you look at the statistics between Niski and Golden Glue, like they actually have a decent amount of similarities too. So I'm kind of excited to see how they push each other to the extremes to become the starting mid lane. Or the most obvious similarity between the two is that they aren't exactly gold hogs like Jensen had a tendency to be. Not so much this split, but in years past, they actually both in the games that they played took 24.2% of the gold, during the games that they played. I think Golden Glue did a better job of using the goal that he was given. But I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that when he came in, him and Svenskeren kind of made the game more about those two as opposed to more of a team game. And Niski actually played throughout the whole split, so it kind of clouded it a little bit. On paper, I don't think he's probably the best pickup that we could have had, and that's where I'm kind of stuck between like I'm really excited for this guy, and I wish we could have gone for someone a lot better and someone who's a bigger name, because he doesn't do an overwhelmingly amount of damage. It was average in EU. His XP difference at 10 is like really, really bad. His goal difference at 10 is negative, and his CS difference at 10 is negative too. So he's not some kind of massively dominant laner, but I think him and Golden Glue kind of fit into how Reapers kind of wanted this team to play in kind of a selfless manner. And as a team, that's main goal is to win rather than show up on the stat sheet after the game. So I think he kind of fits in that way. And just based on what I've seen of how he is as a person, I'm pretty excited to see how he fits into the team and how he actually performs on stage.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think it'll all be about how much they can sort of prime Niski and the team with this boot camp in Korea. You know, maybe I think it can definitely be sort of like a Golden Glue situation where he came in and people weren't really that excited, and everyone was kind of iffy about him. But then he plays and looks like a machine. Everyone's like, "Oh well, of course we took Niski. Why would we not?" It would be a fool's choice not to pick Niski. So hopefully it'll be that type of scenario. We'll just have to wait and see, really. I'm not sure what we can really do right now besides just stupid speculation.
Yeah, and as we're kind of on the topic of the Cloud9 roster is pretty much solidified for a next split. The only difference to the starting Cloud9 roster is Niski in for Jensen, and on the Academy roster, Feng, the support that we got in the Smoothie trade, is gone, and instead we brought in Diamond from what's it called?
Scouting grounds.
Yeah, from Scouting Grounds. He has the LS stamp of approval, which makes me feel a little bit better because I wasn't able to watch that.
I got to watch a bit of it. I was mostly paying attention to Cloud Drake since that was TSM and C9 sponsored team. I think he was on Team Ocean. I think Ocean ended up doing the best, so I think it's definitely a good pickup. I've heard that he was like the best looking player, I think, out of all of the other Scouting Grounds people. So I'm hoping that we will win Academy Worlds yet again and go for the repeat.
Nah, man. I mean, it's cool that we're an absolute, I mean, knowing how much of a factory they are in terms of just producing talent, like I'm absolutely excited for this.
Yeah, so am I. I think C9 has basically become sort of the talent developing gurus, and I think understand just how to turn players loose and make them like 10 times better than they were before. So
Yeah, I think that's about it. Once rosters get finalized, we can spend some more time talking about it. But we spent a long time talking today specifically about the Cloud9 roster. I know there's a couple rosters that haven't been finished, so once those are done, we can gather around again because it's the holiday season and not too many esports are going on. So there's not as much to talk about. So hopefully we'll be back maybe in 2 weeks. I haven't looked at the calendar, but that sounds like it should probably work.
Yeah, other than that, I think every C9 fan can just decompress to just watching Licorice and Sneaky at All Stars, and hopefully tuning into some of the boot camp streams, because I'm pretty sure there's some people, either one, third-party boot camping, thanks to stuff like tracking the pros, or I think some of the players themselves. I think Blabber is streaming a bit from the boot camp, so get to decompress and tune into that.
I know I'll be decompressing by checking out the new Sneaky cosplay because boy howdy, he is a pretty boy.
Bowsette.
I didn't know that he got boobs.
It's like a prosthetic thing. It's basically kind of like a bib, and then you just kind of blend it with makeup. I think someone said in the comments the collar is probably hiding the seam, but his girlfriend I think did most of the makeup and the costuming and stuff, and she did a really good job.
He looks. Say shout outs to her. Jesus Christ.
He looks super good.
I think he picked up his boobs back from when he was fast Sneaky and not where he is now. I think he cut them off and stored them for 2 years, like Austin Powers did.
Either that, or maybe some like fangirl, because like I'm pretty sure his fangirl sent him like some of the weirdest stuff ever. So for all we know, that's probably a gift from a fangirl.
His girlfriend might be one of those who are into the weirdest things ever too. So could be both at the same time.
Hey, but he's her boy.
Hell yeah, I'm cool with some Bowsette if that's what he looks like.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it for us tonight. As always, follow us at C9Bodied or email us at bodiedfancast@gmail.com. We will always like to hear from fans. If you got any points you want to bring up with us, just make sure to hit us up. We'll may even mention it on the next show. But other than that, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.
That's always a pleasure, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Yeah. See you in a couple weeks. I'm gonna get back to Pokemon.